How are you? Welcome. Let's get to the information about what's happening in the world. Thank you for joining us. We are live. We are on air. A big greeting to Blanca, Nico, Jose Sara, and Francisco Arte. The first comments of the day. Let's get into the details. What's happening in the world? Well, just when it seems like it can't escalate any further, this conflict keeps escalating, especially when it comes to the energy issue. Let's review the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom's responses and Iran's reactions. What is he saying and how is Iran responding? What is the spokesperson of the Revolutionary Guard saying in response to this attack? What is Israel saying about this? Where is the conflict heading? Well, we'll get to the details in a moment. Thank you very much. And look, while we're getting started, get your coffee ready. Let's get to the details. If you'd like, please like or share. I would appreciate it. Let's get to the details. Let's get to the information. We'll start with this image. This is one of the images that has caught people's attention today, in which they claim they have attacked a gas area where they report this would be the largest gas field in Iran. It's located in this area. Let's see exactly where it is. Let's see. It's this area. Let's zoom out a little to get our bearings. It's in the south of Iran. Yes. We keep zooming out. This is Iran. Here is the island of, this is Kark Island. But the attack this time isn't on oil, it's on gas. This is considered the largest gas field on the planet. This would have been attacked. And well, there are already obviously tremendous reactions because they say that this hits the economy really hard. And the next step basically is Kark Island. Yes. It was surprising. It was surprising. They thought this would be one of the last points, if it ever happened, because this also affects the economy of that country for a long, extended period of time. The attack was confirmed at the processing facilities of Phase 14 in, it's called South Park, like South Park, but Park, no. He confirms they were hit, causing a fire and partial production suspension. According to Iran's oil minister, the impact is estimated at a loss of 12 million cubic meters of gas per day. This occurred in the world's largest field. It is responsible for 70 to 80% of Iran's gas, so basically they were left without gas for a while, or at least without a good amount of it. The affected production in South Park is currently on fire, and the distribution is obviously, well, blocked, because it's going to start, everything is blocked. Not just the stress and the smoke, it's simply blocked. They say the impact is tremendous. Now, there are reactions. First, let's listen to what Israel has to say, and then what Iran's reaction is to this situation. Let's hear what's being said.
The intensity of the attacks in Iran is rising. We are in the middle of the decisive phase after the forceful targeted killings of high-ranking officials of the regime. Iran's de facto leader, Larijani, and the head of the Crimes Against Humanity organization, Lavashish Soleimani. Tonight, the Iranian Minister of Intelligence, Katib, who was in charge of the regime's assassination and internal repression apparatus in Iran, was also eliminated, as well as promoting external threats against Israel and the countries of the region. Israel's policy is clear and categorical. No one in Iran has immunity, and everyone is in the crosshairs. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have authorized the Israel Defense Forces to eliminate any senior Iranian official on whom an intelligence and operational circle is closed. Without the need for additional approval, we will continue to eliminate them. Todos. Also, during this day, significant surprises are expected on all fronts, which will raise the level of the war we are waging against Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and we have authorized the elimination of an Iranian official. The intelligence circle is closed, and there is a need to obtain approval. Ismail Khattab, we'll talk about that topic in a moment so we don't get ahead of the information, but that's the reaction. He is the spokesperson for the Revolutionary Guard, who delivers a message. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his forces are set to take action to eliminate the Iranian official, bringing the situation to a close.
This is a strong warning and a red line for the criminals who try to attack part of Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure in the south of the country. As a result of this action, the fuel, energy, and gas infrastructure at the origin of the aggression will be set on fire and reduced to ashes. At the first opportunity, to the cowardly and aggressive criminal United States Armed Forces and the savage, child-killing Zionist regime, we announce to them that they will be forced to throw their soldiers into the water and they will lose their honor.
Well, that's part of the message. In other words, those who initiate the attack, according to this spokesperson, will also respond by supposedly attacking their gas, oil, and energy areas. Basically, yes. That's the message this person is giving. Well, obviously, it's clear that this is a reaction that hit hard, that was important, especially because of the level of response it had. No, right now there are some really, really intense things going on. And look, the fact that one day a general is eliminated, another day a minister is eliminated, I mean, they're being left without key people, the Iranians. But this doesn't mean they don't have replacements. Obviously they will, but it does create some chaos, at least internally, a temporary chaos. Maybe, but it seems like this is going to be the focus, right? Similar to what happened with Hezbollah, but even more intense, because in the end, this is a country. Now, Israel claims to have eliminated Ismail Khatib, Iran's Minister of Intelligence. Let's go over some of the details. According to reports, this person was the key figure who oversaw surveillance, detentions, and operations against dissidents, even outside the country. He coordinated actions against Israeli targets in the United States and other parts of the world and operated as the Minister of Intelligence, carrying out missions outside the country. The Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has reportedly already confirmed the death of this minister, so there is no doubt in that regard. That is, Israel confirmed it first, and then the confirmation came from the Iranians as well, from Masoud Pezeshkian himself. Well, this is part of a strategy that has been expanding. Specifically, Israeli intelligence, which is looking to go after all the most visible leaders. The direct message says, no one in Iran, that's the message they give, says no one in Iran has immunity, which marks a doctrine of open war against the top of the regime, warning that, Israel will be participating, as it said in the message we just saw, in significant surprises, including a series of surprises coming towards Ivan. We will surely be witnessing surprises. Let's move on to another detail.
Conflict. I made it very clear that we would not join the offensive attacks that the United States and Israel were carrying out against Iran. We have around 300,000 British citizens in the Gulf region, and it's important that we protect them and our allies. In El Bueno,
let's pause and continue listening where we left off. Just to give a bit of context for those who might not recognize him, he's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. And he gives a reaction. It's several minutes long. I'm going to leave the entire audio. I think it's very important to listen to it in full because that's the more detailed position of the United Kingdom. And that way we understand probably how other ministers, other prime ministers or presidents of the European Union or even NATO think as well, right? But mainly the major powers, right? France, Germany, Italy, maybe, who are thinking about what's happening at the station. Beautiful. It's just a little bit. This is escalating, but without reaching war. And making sure that they're going to focus on de-escalation. That's what they keep insisting on, de-escalating the conflict, right? Let's listen to the whole thing. Here it goes.
the Gulf. So we have the Royal Air Force in particular, flying planes all over the region. In fact, they're intercepting attacks to prevent them from hitting people and buildings. So that's a defensive action. But we're not joining the war. We're allowing the United States to use our bases, but again, for defense, for our own collective defense, to basically eliminate Iran's ability to launch missiles into the air that are or could be aimed at our allies in the Gulf and our people in the Gulf. So we're not going to war. We're simply taking the necessary defensive actions to protect British lives and interests. Whether it's the conflict in the region, the impact on oil and gas, or simply the concern most people have about how this is going to affect me at home, The best way to reduce the impact is to de-escalate, bring an end to the hostilities, and then reach a negotiated agreement. And we are talking to all our allies to try to make sure that happens as quickly as possible. The Strait of Hormuz is a really important waterway. Basically, it's how the Gulf states access the rest of the world. And a lot of oil and gas passes through the strait. Iran is preventing ships from passing through the strait, and that's having an impact on countries. What about oil and gas prices? We need to reopen the strait as soon as possible. We have been talking, especially in the last few days, with our allies about this, the United States, European partners, and the Gulf states. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy to do this, but it's really important that we do it because as long as the strait isn't operating at full capacity, the price of oil and gas goes up. I know this affects everyone at home, but I want to say this para tranquilizar a la gente. In the United Kingdom, for households, we've reduced energy bills by about £117 on average per household. And we're going to put a cap on that. We're going to keep that cap until the end of June. So I know people are worried, but just regarding household energy bills, rest assured that in 3 weeks, they're actually going to go down and then they'll be capped for 3 months. In the meantime, we'll do everything we can to de-escalate the situation in the Gulf because that's the best way to deal with the impact on the cost of living. We have several military bases in the Middle East that have been attacked by Iran, so to protect them, we had already pre-deployed anti-drone capability and radar capability. We already had our planes there, Royal Air Force pilots. We've sent more of those to the region. And from about 1 or 2 hours after the conflict began, we've been working 24 hours a day in the sky, shooting down incoming attacks from Iran, which is protecting our bases and our people in those bases. I'm very aware that no matter what happens in the world, for most people, the issue they care about most is the cost of living. Can I make ends meet? Can I pay my bills? Are my bills going to go up? And there's a real sense of concern about that. Now, I understand that because when I was growing up, we didn't have enough to pay our bills. And that's why literally we had to sit around the kitchen table discussing how we were going to get by. So I know what it's like. I know how it feels. That anxiety is a knot in your stomach when you know you can't pay the bills. That's why this government has said that addressing the cost of living is the #1 priority. In the last budget, we decided to reduce the cost of energy bills. On average, for households, it's about £117. It can vary a bit, but that's the average. Therefore, in 3 weeks, that decision will take effect, and as a result, energy bills will go down, household energy bills, and then we will cap them for 3 months until the end of June. Whatever happens in the conflict, that will be the situation. I know that some people, especially in rural communities and in Northern Ireland, use oil for heating. And that's why today I've announced support for those who use oil because their prices will have gone up. I also want to say, by the way, that there are too many stories of canceled deliveries and then prices go up when a new delivery is scheduled. We have to avoid any sense that people are being ripped off, but we're putting that support in place and we'll see what else we can do. The fuel tax for those who drive is frozen until September in an uncertain world. Those are certainties. Those are some of the things we're doing regarding the imposed cost of living.
Well, he covered a lot of points, right? But I tried to, to go. Looking at the map, let's look at the map exactly where they're supposed to be operating, which surely must be broader. But at least what they've said is that this whole area of Miratos is the one they've been protecting. It's not necessarily that they're flying over the entire Persian Gulf. And that says that since day one, basically, that did catch my attention. I didn't have that information, but well, it's good to know. Or that since day one, basically, they've been flying with the Typhoon. That's what they're saying. So, well, there it is. Now, we were looking at the topic of oil, weren't we? Well, we're watching it. We're talking about it here. Let's see. Give me a moment. There it is. Look. Well, there hasn't been a way. There hasn't been a way to stop the price, to bring it down. This time was the first time they brought down the network. That they announced, we're only going to release the reserves, right? The price had skyrocketed. On this day, not that it's the day, it shows me here a Friday. Let's see if it's Friday. No, Monday, March 9th. This is a Monday. So over the weekend, Well, things happen. The price doesn't go up. Obviously, the stock market was closed then. So the price goes up, but on the same day they announce, we're thinking about releasing the reserves. They bring the price down and it drops to 80%, 80%. Dollars over here, no, here it's $80.03 and it starts to go up. They hadn't released them yet. They announced that they were going to release them. No, okay, the price starts to go up, the price starts to go up, the price starts to go up. Here, it must be between these two, it must be Monday, right? When they released the reserves, when they said 400, I don't know how many million barrels. Well, they've already been announcing that they're releasing them, the reserves are already being released, or releasing them, meaning they put them on the market, right? And they put them there, right? So, since oil is a product, if there's too much supply, the fights start. Hey, how much will you sell me that much oil for? No, well, they're selling it to me for this much here, and then they start haggling and the price drops, right? It's not immediate, but it is fast. Honestly, the trust surprises me. I mean, this thing where, yes, but it's going to keep going down. I don't know, or I just don't see it right now, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm impatient in that sense, and I'm just seeing the signal at least. Or as a good friend of mine, Dario, who is an expert in reading stock charts, would say, not like this. I mean, regardless of the news, what is the fact telling you? I mean, what is the chart telling you? Supply and demand? Aside from the politicians who want to convince you that it will go down or that it won't go down and that everything is already under control. Aside from all that, let's not pay attention to it because those aren't facts, they're just words. Just hope that one thing or another will happen. What is the fact then? The fact is, the graph shows it. What is the trend? That's why we talk about trends. There was a trend break in this yellow line we have drawn here. Let's see. Let's extend this line a little bit. It was a trend line that had been going down for a long time, and that one was broken. Okay, and the trend is already changing, right? No, it hasn't changed yet. Here we would have to draw a new trend line. Let's see. Let's put it like this to see it better. We would have to draw a line or a trend that goes like this. So this would be the trend, more or less. I mean, it's very likely following the trend because normally what the price does is follow the trends. Well, it's going up, right? It's not like, oh, well, it already broke the trend downward. No, not so far. It's like it tried to do it, but it didn't do it when it wanted to. Here it is. At this point, if at this point, around here, we could draw another line. That's the ceiling. This is the floor. But if you notice this floor, let's draw the line to make this easier to understand. Let's draw this line here and let's extend it to... I'm doing it really quickly right now, but that's basically the idea, right? So this floor here bounced at this point, at this price. If it had broken, you'd say, well, it goes up, but it's kind of a false move. Or because it's clearly got the possibility of breaking down. No, it didn't break here. It bounced and went up, tried to break down again, couldn't, tried to break down again. And each time the floor is higher, look at this floor here, really high. Look at this floor, higher, higher, this floor. Today, to break this floor, it had to go down to the 90-something to break the trend of the bottom, so to speak. But it didn't do it, and it keeps going up, right? What does that mean in practical terms for those who are investing there? I mean, the person who invested $93 or those people or institutions that bought at that price and said, hey, well, I bought it at $97. Yes, here it is. I have shares. I bought that asset here. Those barrels, that's what it's supposed to be. Meanwhile, so, well, it means they can't find a lower price. I mean, well, they found it at 97. And this little wick, that's what they call this thin line, this little wick. What it shows you is that there were a lot of people buying here. Yes, so many people that the owners of the oil said, well, I can't sell it to you here anymore because I have too many people buying. I can raise it to 99 or 100 or 101 and people keep buying from me. And then here the opposite happened. Here it's another wick, but it's the opposite. Here they're telling you, hey, I'm selling it at 105 and they say, no, 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 I'll buy it here at 103. Ah, no, well then go over there. So people start wanting to sell it at 105 and they can't. So does the price start going down? Or is there a struggle here between sales, purchases, and sales, purchases, and sales, purchases, and sales? So why is it high? Well, because there are a lot of people wanting to buy. It's still a bit about perception in the sense that even with the reserves, the logic would be that the price should go down. It has to. Don't let this happen to you. I'm just sharing market logic. Because the trolls here like it and they like to take me out of context or understand whatever suits them. So what I'm saying is that in the logic that if there's too much of a product, then the price should go down. But still, and let's say there's too much of a product and they tell you, yes, except that product will run out tomorrow. Even if it's a lie, not assuming, maybe people might want to go buy it. The store owner wants to sell it at the higher price, even though there's plenty and the warehouse is full. And you see, man, but tomorrow it's going to run out because they say people are coming from all over and they're going to want to buy everything. So I sell it at a high price. And you, man, so should I go digital? Yeah, that's true, man. Maybe, yeah, that's true, right? Well, maybe I should. If I buy and they keep buying at high prices, then how? How does that stabilize? Well, when the week comes and I'm right, they've told me you didn't have oil, and here you have a whole bunch, and I need it. And I already bought everything you have. I don't want any more. I already have too much in my reserves, so, well, goodbye. And people, the investors, countries start to stop buying because they already bought at a pretty high price. By the way, so they have no other choice? Hey, well, I have the price at 80, no. Well, I have it at 85, no. Well, I have it at 70. Oh, well, I'll buy the one at 70. That's basically it. So it's not something that's so immediate. I don't have the magic sphere. But if it's true, if they're not lying, because that's the thing, they can't be lying. And that these reserves didn't even go to the market, that they haven't left from what they've said. Suddenly, well, it's a game and a war of perceptions. In fact, it's a war of perceptions everywhere. The war between Russia and Ukraine, the war in Israel, Iran, the United States, it's a war of perceptions. And that's what it's about, trying to understand those perceptions that they're trying to sell us from one side and the other. So honestly, this part about oil is really interesting. Because one thing is what the chart says, another thing is what people say, and another thing is what will actually happen. But those are the trends. Those are the trends. And tomorrow or the day after, we'll see what happens, right? We also have to step back from the chart later and say in 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, how is it going? If it's still in dollars, then the price is really high. And clearly it's going to have an impact on a global level. To all of us, to everyone. Are prices of things going to go up, inflation because of war? It looks like that's where it's headed. That's it. Even though they tried to convince us that there won't be inflation, well, no, it doesn't seem like that's the case. One of the things that stands out that usually happens and tends to happen, it has already happened at other times. It's that when there's inflation, usually Bitcoin goes up. And Bitcoin, after being very weak, and it's been like that for a while. It's been weak. It went up to $60,000 right now. It's at $71,000, but it was at $75,000 just yesterday or the day before. So let's see what happens, right? But usually when there's inflation, Bitcoin goes up quickly. Well, that's something that stands out. All right, let's move on to another topic. Notice that a strong crackdown is being reported again in Cuba after protests have been reported and even riots have already taken place, right? And here the community from Cuba that watches us. When it has been mentioned how things have, escalated. Regarding the topic of blackouts, no, I don't know if Robel is with us right now, or someone who is over there in Cuba who can leave us their comment more or less about how they see things. But according to what the Cuban Observatory for Human Rights says, they have filed a complaint in which they say that the regime has already detained, at least as far as is known, 15 people for participating in protests, including 2 minors, who, well, hopes that he will be released soon. Let's hope that's the case. But they are pointing out that just as some have been released from prison, others have been put in prison. The report covers the period between March 13 and 16, during which 35 repressive actions were recorded at that time. Due to the protests that have been taking place in different locations, protesters, journalists, and activists were detained. The observatory detailed that at least 15 detentions were still ongoing at the time, many of them related to protests taking place in the town of Moron. Now, when we look at those numbers, well, I mean, compared to what happened in Iran, it's incredibly different, right? I mean, yes, the detention of those 15 people is very unfortunate, if not more, right? But there's another group called Prisoners Defenders, which is a non-governmental organization that has estimated the current number of political prisoners. But those are political prisoners who have been detained for a long time, not from the protests, the recent protests. They estimate this number at 1,207 people. Political prisoners. Well, it's known that the regime has them, and that so far they have released 51. No, that was like a goodwill gesture. According to this, given the differences they have right now with Washington, which have also been escalating. Another thing that also catches my attention, going back to the Middle East topic, is this map they've published showing an area where a large-scale attack is taking place. This area would be infrastructure that is key for the Iranian regime. The targets hit are within the general headquarters of the security unit of the Revolutionary Guard Corps. This affected hit area would be where part of that country's missile and defense force is located. Which targets were hit? According to the reports, it's like part of, they say, it's a missile system linked to ballistic missiles that they identified as part of a large-scale attack mission inside the capital, inside Tehran. According to the operations report, this is part of Israel's strategy to weaken Tehran's operational and defense capabilities. That's the issue. By the way, the price of diesel has already surpassed $5 per gallon in the United States. I don't know if we have any friends from the United States with us who can tell us what's going on with gasoline. But speaking of fuel, of diesel, which is widely used for transporting food and products, I mean, trucks use diesel. Reports say diesel prices in the United States have topped $5 per gallon. This situation is creating immediate pressure on the cost of living and the cost of the supply chain. In other words, that chain that brings products to the supermarket, to your home, it could be anything. That means that medicines, food, anything that simply needs to be transported by diesel already has an extra cost right from the start. According to the reports, this is already directly affecting farmers, agricultural producers, and the transportation industry. And it's also threatening to increase the price of food and essential goods and services in the logistics of this. Of United States trade, it's already having an effect. In the last month, it went from costing $3.65 per gallon to $5.04, according to the automotive organization American Automobile Association, as reported by NBC News. And, well, by other American media outlets that have been showing this. Basically, it's about $1.50. That's how much it has gone up. The gallon, apparently, although it reached 2.95, it had already gone up to $5 apparently, so that would be almost $2, the increase. Now, gasoline has an average price, it says here, of 3.79 in the United States, but that's an average price, right? There are states where it's more expensive and states where it might be cheaper. The average from 30 days ago was 2.95. Now, the average is 3.79 per gallon at the, I insist, average at the United States level, right? That's the average. So, well, there it is. And, well, that's how things have been. Interviewing and putting some people, what do they call it? Well, yes, interviewing agricultural workers, producers, a bit about their actions. You can imagine what their actions are. Obviously, there's a price increase that's practically immediate because they feel it. I mean, the product arrives day by day, right? All the supply loads go out, they bring all the medicines, food every day. So there's no way the price doesn't go up. I mean, how much? There could also be some people taking advantage there. That's another issue. Let's move on to other topics next. Look at what's happening right now. We're going to go back to a topic about intelligence in the United States. Very interesting. We'll talk about it in a moment. But let's go to this report. It's a report from Chilean scientists who right now are even challenging one of Albert Einstein's own theories. At the end of the day, there are theories that have been proven, but there are also theories that have been challenged. And right now, a study from a Latin American university, in this case, the Catholic University of the Most Holy Conception, could be opening the door to a different understanding of space-time. The Universidad Católica de la Santísima Concepción, well, the Universidad Católica de la Santísima Concepción because it's Chilean. I'm not used to them always being foreign universities. They presented a study that proposes a new way of understanding gravity beyond what was proposed by Albert Einstein. What it says is that, according to this, and I'm trying to summarize it based on what they've explained to the public, because what we're saying here is surely much more complex, it says. The research introduces the concept of space-time torsion, meaning that the universe doesn't just curve, as relativity says, but it can also twist or even rotate. The work was led by Dr. Patrick Concha, together with Evelyn Rodriguez, Lucrecia Rivera, and Nelson Marino. They were published by the scientific journal Physical Review Letters, one of the most important in physics. The study is based on the so-called Corellian or Corellian regime. Rather, he says, the theoretical framework arises from analyzing certain limits of relativity. According to the researchers, this regime allows for the inclusion of new geometric properties that were not considered in Einstein's classical model. The key, they say, is that it demonstrates for the first time that gravity can include torsion in that regime. By expanding the way symmetries of the universe are understood, this breakthrough would have implications in areas such as holography, quantum theories, and gravity. Even more complex models to understand the context in the theoretical relativity regime, and for researchers, complex models to understand, he says. At a global level, this type of study will be key to understanding and unifying the Corellian or Corellian regime, since it's not so unified, right? It's so common, different things. Well, more than a challenge to Einstein's theory, it seems rather como que es un complemento to Einstein's theory. No, maybe it would be Maybe, I don't know about that, but let's move on to other matters. Let's move on to other important topics. ¿Cómo estás, Dieguito? Roblox, Jose. Nova's dad, a big greeting. Thank you for joining us. Let's move on to other important matters. Well, in a little while we're preparing a report. We're still working on it, but we're preparing a report, I think, for the next broadcast about an intelligence analysis of everything that's happening in the United States, because that part was missing. Haven't the politicians reported many things and the military others? But what does intelligence say? What does intelligence say about the risks that are coming? The head of intelligence, or the person in charge of intelligence in the United States, was saying that she couldn't guarantee the security of the World Cup. That she couldn't guarantee that nothing would happen. Just imagine that. For intelligence itself to say that. Well, we'll talk about that later, but yeah, this is really crazy, this whole topic. And more images keep coming out of how it ended up. This is from a distance. The natural gas processing plant in Iran, the biggest, the largest in the world. So now, how did it end up, right? So what's the result? It was an area, a processing plant. According to what they say about gas now, the effect is lasting. It's one of many other plants within that same complex. How significant is the effect of this attack? Honestly, that part isn't clarified by Iran or by Israel, right? I mean, they're only saying that, well, for now, this area will be on pause. But that doesn't mean, well, at least that's how I feel, how I see it, or me. It doesn't mean that all the information or infrastructure in the area has been destroyed. I don't think that's the case either. But taking it and comparing it a bit to what usually happens in Ukraine with these refineries that have been constantly attacked by the Ukrainians and also by the Russians, by the way, against Ukraine. What the experts in this area say is that they get hit suddenly, sometimes for months, sometimes once a week. I mean, they get hit. I mean, the attacks target areas that leave parts of the refinery out of operation, and it takes them weeks to months to rebuild, right? So that's the approach they have, which is to slow down these kinds of operations. That's why I insist I don't know to what extent the attack is. They were left without gas infrastructure, or, well, it's something that in 2 or 3 months will be working again, normally. That's the part where we'll have to wait for more details. We're not going to the comments yet. We'll be back in a little while with an intelligence report. We also have a special today. I don't know if we'll be able to broadcast it right now, but it's a short special about a study and a series of comments that some military men have been making, but about a case from back in the 60s. I don't remember the date, I'll check it right now, but it's a series. A series of cases that former United States Air Force officers have been revealing about those documents that are now known, where objects that appear in the sky supposedly interacted or stopped the functions of nuclear weapons in the United States and in Russia. But the case we're going to talk about today is what happened in the United States. What this officer now reveals adds more information to what is already known about that case. We talked a while ago. What's it about? Some interviews have come up, and I find it very interesting to analyze them, along with what is already known about that case, with the official information that was already available. So I find that super interesting to talk about, and also to have a different topic that we really like. That topic, especially when it's well documented and when there is data that can shed some light on it. It really catches my attention because it's the Air Force and there are official documents and we're talking about nuclear weapons. I don't understand why the media insists on trying to spin all of that. I mean, not all of them, maybe there are some that don't, but many try to spin that topic. I don't understand. They see it as... I mean, they can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. So suddenly, yeah, there's been so much fiction. So many things have been exaggerated by a lot of commentators that suddenly these topics become taboo. They turn into taboos. Self-censorship for some media groups. Some of them don't want to talk about the topic anymore. They're afraid people will say, oh, that's not true. There will always be someone who wants to tell you that. It's like you can't be stuck on that topic. And it does surprise me that there are some media outlets that have opened up to that. That there's also that other side. There are media outlets that are starting to take this seriously and are putting out very interesting things. Well, greetings, says Robley. How are you, Robley? How have you been? Hey, Raul, how have you been? Very good. Carlos Martinez as well. Greetings. Eliseo Juanita Leal, how have you been? If the price of company XOM should be around 102 and it's at 160, it's very overextended. The trend change indicator shows 70 relative strength index is very high and the moving average convergence as well. Both lines are joined. Great analysis, Juanita. How do you see oil? It looks like you like trading, or maybe you work in trading. How do you see, from the chart's point of view? Leaving aside the political aspects and the war, if they just showed you the oil chart, right now, the Brent chart to be exact, because that's where it is. There's Texas, there's West Texas, Intermediate Texas, there's Brent, there are others too. If you look at Brent, what do you see there? I mean, you say if they show me this, I would bet that it's going to go up to a certain amount because you can do that analysis. I mean, with that trend, it's going to reach that amount. No, I didn't see if you can check the volume here, for example. I think you can't with oil, right? Some assets, I think, don't display the volume here. Maybe I don't have the indicator set. Let's say I'll check it later, but if not, I don't have it here. Because there are indicators that do let you have the volume information and there are others that don't, right? So in this case, if I don't know, I'd have to check how that works. $104 right now. I mean, it keeps going up. It was at 103 just now when we were looking at it. And actually, when I was preparing the report, it was at 105. But it managed to drop to 103. Now it's going up to 104. There it goes, right? Hello, Mauro. How have you been? Francisco Arce, how's it going? Thank you so much, Carito. Greetings. Who else is here? And this Karim, how have you been? Also, a big hello, Karim. A big hello. Thanks to Ricardo as well. Thank you so much, Maria Elena Onofre. How have you been? Greetings to Puebla. A big hello, says Arbe. Arbella. Antonio, greetings. How have you been? Thank you so much, Perla. How have you been? They're saying that the television just reported 2 missiles hit Saudi Arabia. We'll check it right now. Thank you for the information, Perla. Thank you for the information. Yes, I'll check it right now. And in the position of this broadcast, we'll talk about it as it continues. Yes, this one caught my attention. For example, among all the attacks that have been happening, there isn't really a reaction, it seems to me. Or at least an attempt to react to launch a series of attacks towards, for example, Tel Aviv or different points in Israel. Directly at buildings or at civilians, I mean, that's what's going around. This apartment belongs to 2 people in their 70s, a woman and a man, both 70 years old. Obviously, they didn't survive, right? In this case, the reactions haven't been like that, not about wanting to overwhelm the Israeli system. And, well, obviously we'll also be talking about that later, about how they've been carrying out attacks on different locations. Another curious thing, I don't know what it is. Yam is like a root, right? But look, this is really interesting, isn't it? That happened in Guangdong, where what you're seeing there is a root, but it came out shaped like a hand. So, as a curiosity, it's obviously funny. It even looks like it has fingernails. Look, pay attention from the front. The root is right there. You can clearly see the size of the root. Just look at it. It's huge. It has 2 black parts where the root adapts. Look at that. It looks like a giant hand, but look when he puts it in front. Look, I mean, it's crazy like a fluke, right? But it's interesting, one of the curiosities of the day, right? We also like to bring you those. Today, Popocatépetl was also there. It was around... This kind of light from there, by the way, it's also really snowy. Popocatépetl looks really beautiful. Right now, well, this is being reported by Webstar de Mexico. They've also been watching this guy Champagne over there. You know he didn't go to the Oscars because he's in Ukraine, right? So there you go. Champagne is there. I think he's making a documentary for Ukraine, maybe to interview Zelensky or something similar. See, they give Zelensky an Oscar. Look, they give him an Oscar, like made of brass or something. No, of steel. According to what they explained, the one who gives him the Oscar is from a train track that was hit by a Russian missile, and they take the piece of steel and make it into an Oscar. Well, it's a bit of raising awareness of, well, informing people about what's happening over there. To this actor who won the Oscar, not for the movie Battle After Battle, I guess they send him the Oscar, I don't know how that works. When actors can't go because they're caught up in a project or something, I guess they send it to them later or something like that. I don't know how it works. Well, that's how it is. Let's move on to other important topics. We'll be back later. A big greeting to Robel.
Dice Robin.
Also, look, greetings. Thank you very much, Robin or Robin, right? Greetings to Rublos, Juanita, great well, to everyone. Eliseo, how are you? Carlos, Billy, greetings as well. A big greeting, Billy. Dieguito says, you can see Trump making everything worse with his ego, says Dieguito. How are you, Diego? Very good, he says. Thank you, Caribe, and the whole community. We'll continue later. Juanita, give me your comment later. Juanita Leal, give me your comment. Let's see. How do you see the chart? Wouldn't it be really interesting? See you later. Have an excellent day. We'll return soon with another update on different topics, including an interesting one about United States intelligence. Honestly, the report is almost ready, but we want to have some dubbed videos, so once it's ready, we'll talk about it in a moment. All right?